Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back for another TOS video. So in this video we're going to cover a bit of TOS news, right? So some of you guys might have already gotten this news because I'm doing a pretty late video on this, right? So if you have not gotten this news, right, so what you can see on the screen right now, 40 cards, right, 40 existing cards are going to get their skills greatly buffed, right? Some not so big of a buff, but some are pretty massive buff. Right, so I haven't been doing much videos on my channel, right, because of a busy schedule, right? So don't worry, I'm coming back on schedule, right? So you'll be expecting videos to be up on the usual time in the future. Right, so let's get back to this video. So character skills adjustment power greatly up. So you can see all these cards right here, 40 of them. We're gonna go through some of them, some of the main cards that are gonna get buffed. Right, so I'm actually pretty excited for one of it, so let's get started. Alright, so the first card we're gonna take a look is Fatal Hunter Lynx. Right, so Lynx has been pretty much out of the meta ever since her series has been released, right? So the only realistic card that is used within the series is pretty much Andromeda every now and then, but the most I would say OP one would be Ophiuchus, right, within the 3 jackpot cards. So Lynx is pretty much left out after that, right? So Madhead have do a bit of buff. So you can see here, leader skill HP times 1.2, which is an additional buff, right? So you can see on the right here is the current Lynx that have not been buffed yet. As you can see, leader skill, there is no HP buff at all. So giving Lynx an additional 1.2 times HP is gonna be a pretty much quality of life change for Lynx. Right, so note that it's leader skill, so if you are running leader ally Lynx, that's going to be additional 1.2 times and 1.2 times. Right, so on top of that, let's take a look at more leader skill. So now Lynx will drop, I think it's going to be here at the passive skill here. No. Oh, it's within the leader skill. Right, so you can see for the current Lynx, by dissolving 3 types of runestones, 1 dark beast runestones will be generated. Right, so we have a buff for that part of the leader skill, which now drops enchanted dark beast runestone. So we have a bit of enchantment as sky drop now. So not sure whether there's gonna be a buff in certain cases, right? So if we have stages such as we are enchanted runes will do 0 damage, right? So this is where the buff Lynx is gonna fall victim to such a stage. Right, but so far it's gonna be a I wouldn't say massive, right? It's gonna be a big quality of life change for Lynx, right? So not sure whether it's gonna be good enough for Lynx to return to the meta, right? So you guys let me know in the comments below. Right, so on top of that, this is the biggest change or buff for Lynx, right? Which is team skill. CD of all members will reduce, right? There's a bit of English error there. Right, so CD will reduce for all members and when entering the battle. So this is going to be very similar to what Azathoth have and what Suzuko have. Right, so we have initial CD reduction, right, upon entering the stage. So this in terms of Lynx gameplay, right, we have the Mochi Bunny, which reduces hard drop rate to 0 and converting the drop rate into dark runes, right? So that's at a CD of 8. So we have to pretty much drag out the battle to 8 turns before activating the Mochi Bunny, and then that's where the massive sky drop will come in, right? So now when it drops enchanted dark beast, so that's gonna increase the damage. And now with CD reduced, it's you can activate Mochi Bunny a lot earlier, and that's gonna overall buff up Lynx quite a bit as well, right? So not forgetting every other members have a CD reduction, so that's gonna be very good to see in the future, right, for Lynx. Right, so let's take a look at Honda. Right, so who is Honda? I think most players have already forgotten who is Honda. Right, so Honda has been out for pretty long, right? He's a member of the Sengoku Samurai, and he's pretty much like the weakest of the entire jackpot, right, apart from Hideyoshi and Nobunaga. So you can say Lynx and Honda is pretty much in the same position. They are like the weakest jackpot within the series, right? But he's getting some buff, so I think this one is gonna be a pretty minor buff to him, right? He's not gonna be massively buff, so I'm not sure whether Honda is gonna be back into the meta even with this buff, right? So let's take a look. The first one, team skill. More flexible when forming team members, right? This means that Honda doesn't require you to run a water-like setup anymore, right? As you can see, the existing Honda here, when there are only two attributes in the team, right? Usually, most ideally, you want to run a light water team, right? So usually with maybe 大乔, 小乔 and stuff like that, right? So now it is no longer restricted to 2 attributes. You can form as many attribute as possible, right? So there's going to be a bit more flexibility within the Honda team setup. Alright, so team skill, we do have a damage reduction effect added, right? So there's going to be a buff as well, right? So not sure whether we need the damage reduction. Maybe we actually need more damage multiplier instead, right? So you can see for Honda, team attack times 2.5, and then to the max if 4 more humans, team attack times 2 additionally, and then overall, even with the additional damage multiplier, it's not actually that high as well, right? So I think Madhead is moving to giving these cards a bit of attention, right? But not too much. So it's just a slight buff because all these cards have not gone through power release, right? So they might get a stronger skill after that, right? So at this point of time, they are just giving these cards more attention by just slightly tweaking or slightly buffing their skills, right? So overall, I think that this team damage reduction is actually pretty good as well, right? So on top of that, we have active skill reduce as well. So we'll talk about Honda's active skill, right, at the last part of the video, because we have a bunch of them, right? So currently Honda is at CD 9, which is very, very high, right? On top of that, it doesn't really do much but to just like maybe dodge one attack from the enemy, right? So useful at times, but it is usually just not used at all, right? Honda is a very underused card and pretty much useless, right? So let's take a look at the next buff. Alright, so the next card we're going to take a look is Sunter, right? So we have a lot of players complaining like the new Warlord 2 series, right? Sunter, Xiahou Dun, and Zhurong. Right, these 3 cards are usually being compared with like the 3 jackpot cards from the earlier Warlord series, which is Guan Yu and Gang. Right, so we're not going to talk about the first series, we're going to talk about Sunter right now. Right, so Sunter, I would say that this guy here is has the biggest buff in this entire update. Right, so we're going to talk about its buff one by one, right, starting with the leader skill, able to dissolve by aligning 2 hard runestones. Right, so as you guys know, Sunter is a completely new gameplay, whereas you have to dissolve 4 runes together, right, instead of the usual 3 dissolve. Right, so usually people will kind of it was an interesting gameplay at first, right, but we do get restricted by sky drop most of the time, right, because runes doesn't fall in place, and then this 4 dissolve isn't very favorable in terms of TOS gameplay, right? But now they have buffed the leader skill, and hard runes you can actually dissolve by aligning 2, right? So this will massively clear the board, right? If you have like a lot of hard runes on the board, so you don't have to dissolve one group of 4, right? You can split it, dissolve it 2 by 2, like what you can do for Sakura or a Dipankara Yang Jian team, right? So it will dissolve, and not forgetting we have a additional combo count, right? So combo count +1, right? If you look at Sunter's leader skill, and then there's going to be +3 for duo Sunter. So dissolving 2 hard runes is going to increase combo count by 3 as well, right? So that is going to be massive, right? If you have sky drop that falls perfectly in your favor. So next we have team skill, water runes, possession, enhance, right? So this is not gonna affect the normal water runes. Right, so water runes upon dissolving gives you 100% effect as well. There's no change. What they are referring to here is that every other runes, right, which is Sunter's team skill, right, as you can see here, team skill, other attributive runestones possess 25% of water runes, right? So the non-buff version is getting 25% for each of other attributive runestones you dissolve, but now all the other runestones possess 35% water runestones effect, right? So we have an additional 10%, right? So that's gonna be pretty massive as well, right? So that's gonna further increase Sunter's damage overall, right? And then not forgetting Sunter can actually pair up with Cassandra to deal a massive amount of damage, right? So I would say that Sunter right here is the biggest buff in this entire update, right? So do let me know which of the do let me know your opinions, right? So in my opinion, I feel that Sunter really gets a huge buff right here, right? And we are not talking about power release yet. Maybe after power release he's going to be super strong, even stronger. Alright, so that's all for Sunter, right? So even though we have just 2 adjustment, right, to the leader skill as well as the team skill, it is actually pretty massive as well. Right, so let's take a look at the next card. Alright, so the next buff we're going to talk about is Xiahou Dun. Right, so Xiahou Dun is also one of the underwhelming jackpot cards that we have within the Warlord 2, right? So honestly, Warlord 2 was a bit disappointing, right? Other than the fact that Zhurong can pair up with 3 Enchantress, right? The other 2, which is Sunter and Xiahou Dun, was pretty much on the downside, right? Not very powerful, and then now these 2 are getting a buff, right? So let's take a look at Xiahou Dun's leader skill change, right? So for the English translation, they just simply put attack multiplier up, right? So I'm just going to talk about his leader skill buff in detail, right? So if you can take a look at the card Xiahou Dun's leader skill here, right? We have a team attack times 4, and then by dissolving 9 or more fire, earth, dark, which is auto generation, right? If you guys still remember his playstyle, right? Within that 3x3 box within the board, right? You get, for the non-buff version, you get 1.5 times team attack additionally, right? So now with the leader skill buff, you actually get a 1.8 times additionally instead of 1.5, right? So usually leader skill buff is better than team skill buff, right? Because you can actually you actually double the effect, you know what I mean? So instead of getting 1.5 times 1.5, now by dissolving the board within the frame, you get 1.8 times 1.8. So that's actually quite a huge amount of change in terms of multiplier, right? So let's take a look at active skill, right? So Xiahou Dun usually we usually laugh at his active skill, right? Like his active skill is literally useless if the enemy doesn't attack us, right? So Madhead have take a look at his active skill and then pretty much gave him an additional monster attack times 2.5, right? So when Xiahou Dun's active skill is in play, the monster's attack times 2.5, right? So not sure why they just give Xiahou Dun's the 2.5, right? Maybe they should just give you know what, like the team attack times 2.5 and it stays in play, right? That would actually be more ideal, right? Considering Xiahou Dun is actually a very, very underwhelming card, right? So anyways, right, monster attack times 2.5, that's pretty much welcome because leader ally, right? So if one gets remove or neutralize reset, you can actually on the other Xiahou Dun and you get back this 2.5 times monster attack active skill, right? So overall, I think Xiahou Dun is quite balanced right now, right? But in terms of damage multiplier, maybe not so much, right? Maybe we need some sort of power release as usual, right? The power release part usually save a card's life, right? So as of now, I think that we can actually use Xiahou Dun for future battles, right? I'll be quite tempted to try this out. Alright, so the next buff we're going to talk about is Sakura, right? So Sakura, usually, as you can see the trend right now, right? Usually the cards here that are being buffed so far are like the underwhelming cards within the Jackpot series, right? So we're going to talk about Sakura from the Flower Elf series, and the buff that she gets is only changing the active skill, right? So what you can see here is change in active skill turn into Elf Runestones at the beginning, right? So what it usually means is, as you can see from the active skill right here, at the beginning of the next round, turn non-fire and non-heart into enchanted fire runes as the same of a number same as the recorded number of combos made, right? So instead of getting just enchant fire, now you get enchant fire Elf Runestones, right? Which is also a plus because it is additional damage, right? Raised runes is better than enchanted, right? So if you get enchanted raised runes, that is a lot of damage, right? But the problem is CD8, right? So but anyways, right, this is gonna be a big change in terms of damage output for Sakura, right? So Sakura, when paired with maybe like Cactus and maybe Cornflower and other booster cards, Sakura can now actually deal more damage, right? Considering that Fire Runes possess effect of, you know, all attributes, which means that all the other elf within the team gets a buff as well, right? Not just fire elf, right? So this is definitely a plus for Sakura team. Okay, next up we're going to talk about He Xian Gu. Right, so this is pretty surprising, right? Because He Xian Gu, I feel that she's in quite a right position, right? I don't think she needs buff whatsoever, right? But Madhead still went ahead to go with to give her a buff, right? So, well, any buff is welcome, right? As long as it's not a nerf. Alright, so let's take a look at what's in store for He Xian Gu, right? So we have a change in leader skill as well. So reduce to 3 monsters of the 8 Xian, right? So what it now currently, as you can see, you require 4 or more monsters from the 8 Xian series in order to get this attack bonus for each combo, right? So usually if you are the kind of player who doesn't draw like duplicates and stuff like that, you'll realize that a He Xian Gu team, right, paired with probably Lü Dongbing, right, doesn't make sense, right? If you want to run like you probably have to run like any other trash non-rare kind of 8 Xian in the team, and that's not ideal, right? So as you can see, if I play He Xian Gu, right, back in a few live streams and stuff like that, you'll notice that I'll put in multiple Lü Dongbing in order to hit this 4 8 Xian criteria, right? So which is not ideal to most players, right? Because I'm not sure if many players actually draw for duplicate Lü Dongbing and stuff like that, right? So when it reduced to 3 8 Xian, right, so this is more ideal because you can let's say you draw He Xian Gu and you draw Lü Dongbing, right, and you ally another Lü Dongbing, that is 3 8 Xian. So that is ideal because you don't have any dupes whatsoever, and you can slot in other cards boosters such as Anubis and stuff like that, right? So definitely a plus. This should be the original leader skill for He Xian Gu, right? So I'm glad Madhead have fixed this. Right, on top of that, we have a change in active skill as well, God Attack up. So they didn't really explain much, right? So I'm gonna explain to you, right? Basically, it's just God Attack times 2 instead of times 1.8, as you can see on the current He Xian Gu. Right, so everything else remains the same, right? Just that it gets a buff from God Attack times 1.8 to God Attack times 2. Right, so as I always say, right, any buff is welcome. So this card here, other than playing a He Xian Gu Lü Dongbing kind of setup, right, you can actually throw in He Xian Gu into a Lucifer team, right, and then that's gonna be times 2 for Lucifer's damage, so which is pretty devastating as well, right? So overall, He Xian Gu thumbs up, very good buff, especially to the leader skill, right? This is definitely gonna make He Xian Gu and Lü Dongbing gameplay much more viable, right? Instead of just like throwing dupes Lü Dongbing in just to fulfill the current 4 8 Xian team. Alright, so the last card we're going to talk about is Lan Caihe from the 8 Xian series as well. Right, so I'm not sure why Madhead buffed this guy, because this guy is literally like the one of the most unused card in the game ever. Right, but still not a bad active skill nonetheless, right? This guy is actually pretty useful at the younger Toguro Ultimate stage a few weeks back. Right, so Lan Caihe have a change in active skill, right, which now it actually converts Fire Runes Touch into Water, Dark Runes Touch into Light, and then that's about it. Right, so now with a buff, it actually converts Enchant Water and Enchant Light Runes instead. Right, so with that additional enchantment, that's gonna increase the overall team damage. Right, so that's provided you are gonna use Lan Caihe in the team. If not, this card here remains in the inventory untouched, right? So overall, this is gonna be one of the few big buffs, right? So I'll let you guys decide which ones are the big buff, which ones are the not so big buff, right? So let me know in the comments below which of these are your favorite changes, right, in terms of active skill, leader skill, and team skill. Right, so before I end the video, I still have a list of cards, right? As you can see, as I mentioned at the start of the video, there are a total of 40 cards that are being buffed, right? So these are the rest of the cards. Okay, so what you can see on the screen right here is basically the new buffs, right? Basically, all of them are just CD adjustments, right? But most of them are, I wouldn't say that it is huge, right? But most cards here are not going to be usable still, right? Even with the CD reduction, because there are honestly better cards out there. Right, so from the top, you can see Honda, and all the way down are the few joint operation cards that we have pretty long ago. Right, so all of them have just CD adjustments, so I'm not gonna explain card by card. You guys can just pause the video and take a look at the cards that are being buffed in terms of CD active skill. Alright, so overall I find that this entire update here is just to give most cards out there a quality of life change, especially Sunter. I am very happy for Sunter because that is gonna be buffing his damage pretty much a lot. Alright, and then with that 2 dissolve, you can actually recover a decent amount of HP, right? So, and that actually enables him to probably counter overheal shield in the future, right? So I'll see how that goes. Right, when the buff comes into the game, maybe I'll do a bit of a overheal stage and see how much Sunter can actually overheal. Right, so that's all about the buff that we're gonna get in the upcoming update. Right, so let me know which buff is your favorite in the comments below. Right, so hopefully you guys enjoy this informative video. If you guys like the video, do give it a like, and then as usual, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.